Part 1. The Arrival. The alarm system screamed across Jupiter Station at exactly 300 hours. Commander Hyunwoo was already awake, staring at the detection screens that showed something impossible. 12 massive ships had appeared near Jupiter's orbit, materializing out of nowhere like ghosts becoming solid. They were bigger than anything humanity had ever built, their hulls covered in strange metal that seemed to drink in the starlight. Hyunwoo's hands moved quickly across the control panel. His team rushed into the command center, their faces showing the same shock he felt inside. Dr. Minji arrived last, her tablet already displaying preliminary scans of the unknown vessels. She looked at the data, and then at Hyunwoo, her expression grim. "They're not from our solar system," she said quietly. "The energy signatures are completely alien. For 40 years, humanity had suspected they were not alone. Radio telescopes had picked up strange patterns in deep space, fragments of conversations between stars that were too organized to be natural. Scientists had debated, and governments had prepared, building defenses against a threat that might never come. Now that threat was here, hanging in space like massive steel predators. The communication came 18 minutes after the ships appeared. It was not a greeting or a question. It was a demand, translated into perfect English by computers that had clearly studied human transmissions for some time. "Primitive species of the third planet. You have been selected for collection by the Vraxil hunting fleet. Deliver 10,000 of your kind to our vessels within 2 planetary rotations. They will serve the Empire as labor units. Refuse, and your cities will burn from orbit. Resist and we will take 20,000 instead. You have no choice. You have no power. Submit." The command center fell silent. Someone dropped a tablet, and the clatter echoed like a gunshot. Hyunwoo felt his stomach turn to ice, but his mind was already moving, already calculating. He had trained for this moment his entire career, even when others called him paranoid. "Minji, analyze everything about that transmission," he said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "I want to know their language structure, their technology, everything you can pull from the signal." He turned to his communications officer. "Send a response, tell them we need 48 hours to discuss their terms with our leadership." The young officer stared at him. "Sir, they said 2 days already." "I know what they said. Tell them 48 hours and make it sound like we're afraid. Make it sound like we're panicking and need time to decide who to surrender." Understanding dawned on the officer's face. He nodded and began typing the message. Hyunwoo activated his secure link to Earth Defense Coalition headquarters. Admiral Kyung-soo's face appeared on the screen within seconds. The old man looked like he had aged 10 years in the last 20 minutes. "You saw them," Kyung-soo said. It was not a question. "Yes, sir. They want slaves. They think we're easy prey." "Are we?" Hyunwoo allowed himself a cold smile. "No, sir. I'm activating Protocol Nightfall." Kyung-soo nodded slowly. "Do it. And Hyunwoo, make them regret coming to our system." Across human space, secret orders began flowing through encrypted channels. Protocol Nightfall was not a defensive plan. It was a trap, designed decades ago by military planners who understood one simple truth. If hostile aliens came to Earth, they would expect primitive victims, not organized resistance. Captain Tae Yang received his orders aboard the stealth frigate, Silent Arrow, currently hiding in the shadow of Europa. His ship was one of 37 like it, designed to be invisible to enemy sensors, painted in materials that absorbed radar and heat signatures. They had practiced for this scenario hundreds of times in simulations. "All hands to battle stations," Taeyang announced calmly. "This is not a drill. We have hostile alien vessels in our system. They think we're helpless. Let's teach them otherwise." His crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had trained together for 8 years, preparing for a day that might never come. Now it was here, and fear mixed with determination on every face. They were not soldiers attacking an enemy. They were defenders protecting their home, their families, and every human being alive. On Mars Colony, civilian administrator Suho was helping his children with homework, when the emergency broadcast interrupted every screen in the habitat. His daughter looked up at him with frightened eyes as the message explained what was happening near Jupiter. "Dad, are the aliens going to take us?" she asked. Suho pulled her close, his mind racing. "No, sweetheart. No one is taking anyone. We're going to be fine." But even as he said it, he was thinking about the emergency supplies in the storage modules, about the mining equipment that could be turned into weapons, about the 1,000 ways a desperate person could fight back. He would not let his children become slaves. He would burn Mars down first. Back on Jupiter Station, Dr. Minji was making progress. The Vraxil transmission had contained more information than they realized. Their translation software had left traces, digital fingerprints that revealed how their computers worked. More importantly, the brief scan they had done of human space had exposed their sensor frequencies. "Hyunwoo, look at this," she said, pulling up a holographic display. "Their scanners work on these specific wavelengths. And see this? Their ship hulls are designed to deflect high-energy weapons, but kinetic impacts would be much more effective." "You mean old-fashioned bullets?" "I mean very fast old-fashioned bullets. Their shields are optimized for laser and plasma weapons. They've probably fought species that use energy weapons for centuries. But mass drivers, rail guns, tungsten, rods moving at orbital speeds, I don't think they're ready for that." Hyunwoo felt hope rising in his chest. Humanity had built its weapons based on physics, not on technology stolen from other species. Human warships used kinetic weapons because they were reliable, cheap, and devastating. What the Vraxil saw as primitive might be their greatest advantage. The Vraxil fleet began moving toward Earth, confident in their superiority. War Master Kreth stood on his command bridge, reviewing the scans of the primitive planet. Billions of soft creatures living in metal hives, using chemical rockets and nuclear fission. They had not even mastered faster than light travel. This would be easier than the last 3 harvests. They asked for more time. His communications officer reported. "They sound frightened." Kreth's mouth parts twisted in satisfaction. "As they should be. Maintain course. Begin selecting population centers for demonstration bombardment if they refuse to comply." But Kreth did not see the hundreds of small objects drifting in the asteroid belt, each one painted in radar-absorbing black, each one cold and dormant. He dismissed them as space debris, natural rocks floating in the void. It never occurred to him that rocks do not usually contain high explosive charges and electromagnetic pulse generators. It never occurred to him that humanity had been watching the stars for decades, waiting and preparing. It never occurred to him that the prey had teeth. Part 2. The hunters become the hunted. The Vraxil fleet crossed into the asteroid belt with absolute confidence. War Master Kreth stood at the center of his command bridge, watching the primitive planet grow larger on his screens. In 300 years of service, he had overseen 42 harvests across 17 different worlds. None had ever fought back successfully. None had ever made him afraid. That was about to change. Engineer Hana sat in a small control room on Ceres Station, her fingers hovering over a single red button. Around her, 3 other engineers waited in silence. They had spent 5 years placing the mines throughout the asteroid belt, disguising them as rocks, spacing them perfectly. Now all that work would be tested in the next 60 seconds. "Fleet entering kill zone," someone announced over the radio. 30 seconds. Hana closed her eyes and thought about her sister living on Earth, about her nephew who was only 3 years old, about every person who would become a slave if this failed. Then she opened her eyes and pressed the button. 347 electromagnetic pulse mines detonated simultaneously throughout the asteroid belt. They did not explode with fire or shrapnel. Instead, they released massive waves of electromagnetic energy that washed over the Vraxil ships like invisible tsunamis. Shield generators overloaded instantly. Communication arrays fried and went dark. Targeting computers crashed. Navigation systems spun uselessly. On his bridge, Kreth grabbed a support rail as the lights flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. His officers shouted reports, their voices full of confusion and rising panic. Shields down across the fleet. "Communications offline. Sensors are blind." "What happened?" Kreth roared. "What did they do?" But his crew had no answers. They had been struck by something they had never encountered. something their technology was not designed to resist. And in that moment of blindness and confusion, the real attack began. Captain Tai Yang watched the EMP signatures bloom across his tactical display like deadly flowers. The moment they faded, he gave the order his crew had been waiting to hear. All ships weapons free. Execute attack pattern hammer. 37 stealth frigates emerged from hiding spots throughout the asteroid belt. They had been drifting cold and silent, invisible to Vraxil sensors, waiting for this exact moment. Now their engines flared to life and their railguns began to fire. Tungsten rods, each one the size of a telephone pole, accelerated to impossible speeds. They crossed the distance to the Vraxil fleet in seconds. Moving too fast for crippled defense systems to track, the rods punched through armor plating like paper, tearing through bulkheads and reactors and crew compartments. Ships that had seemed invincible minutes ago began to break apart, bleeding atmosphere and bodies into the void. Kreth felt his flagship shudder from multiple impacts. Damage reports flooded in faster than he could process them. 2 of his heavy cruisers were already tumbling, their engines dead, their hulls torn open. The primitives were attacking. The helpless prey had weapons. How was this possible? "Return fire!" he screamed. "Find them and destroy them!" But his gunners were firing blind, shooting at shadows and empty space. The human ships were too small, too fast, and too smart. They fired and immediately changed position, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. It was like fighting ghosts. Lieutenant Daehyun was not aboard any of the frigates. He was 3,000 kilometers away, sitting in a cramped cockpit that was not actually a cockpit at all. It was a control pod for an experimental weapons system that Earth Defense Coalition had been developing for 12 years. They called them rail drones, small unmanned fighters controlled by quantum-linked artificial intelligence and human pilots working together. Daehyun's consciousness was linked directly to his fighter through neural interface. He could feel the ship around him like a second body. When he thought about turning, the fighter turned. When he wanted to fire, the weapons fired. And he was not alone. 200 other pilots sat in similar pods scattered across human space, each one controlling a fighter, each one now diving toward the Vraxil fleet. "Swarm formation," Daehyun called to his squadron. "Hit them fast, hit them hard, then scatter." The rail drones moved like a school of predatory fish flowing around the larger Vraxil ships, targeting engine pods and weapon systems. They were too small and numerous for the aliens to track effectively. Every few seconds, another explosion bloomed against Vraxil armor, as missiles and kinetic rounds found their marks. Dr. Minji watched the battle from Jupiter Station, analyzing every piece of data that came in. She had studied the Vraxil ships from their initial scans and had identified their weaknesses. Now she was feeding targeting information directly to the attack fleet, showing them exactly where to hit for maximum damage. "Third cruiser from the left," she transmitted to Taeyang. "Their reactor is located in the aft section, starboard side. 3 direct hits should cause a cascade failure." "Understood," Taeyang replied. Silent Arrow moving to engage. His frigate swung around a tumbling asteroid, lined up the shot, and fired. 3 tungsten rods struck the cruiser's reactor housing within 2 seconds of each other. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire aft section of the ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, tearing the cruiser in half. Kreth watched one of his finest ships die and felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear. These were not primitives. These were warriors, organized and prepared. They had been waiting for his fleet. They had planned this. The trap had been perfect. "Retreat," he ordered, the word tasting like poison. "All ships fall back to Mars orbit. We regroup there." But retreating under fire was chaos. The human ships pursued them relentlessly, picking off stragglers, hammering damaged vessels until they fell silent. By the time the Vraxil fleet reached Mars, they had lost 3 heavy cruisers and 4 escort vessels. Nearly a quarter of their strength was gone. Aboard Jupiter Station, Hyun-woo allowed himself to breathe for the first time in an hour. They had won the first battle, but he knew it was not over. The Vraxil were regrouping, and angry predators were the most dangerous kind. "Status report," he ordered. "Enemy fleet has taken position in Mars orbit," his tactical officer reported. They're scanning the civilian colony." Hyun-woo's blood went cold. Mars colony held 15,000 civilians, including families and children. If the Vraxil decided to take hostages, this fight would become much more complicated. His worst fears were confirmed when the next transmission came through. This time Kreth's voice was cold with rage. "Humans, you have made a grave mistake. We now hold your colony on the Red Planet. Surrender immediately or we will execute 1,000 of your people every hour until you comply. You have shown you can fight. Now show us you can watch your own die." Silence fell across the command center. Someone whispered a prayer. Hyunwoo stared at the tactical display, his mind racing through options, all of them terrible. They could win battles in space, but the Vraxil were now using civilians as shields. Then a new voice came over the channel, one Hyunwoo did not recognize at first. It was rough and determined, coming from Mars Colony itself. "Jupiter Station, this is Suho, civilian administrator of Mars Colony. We heard the Vraxil transmission. We are not waiting to be rescued. We are not hostages. Tell the fleet to keep fighting. We'll handle things down here." Before Hyunwoo could respond, the transmission cut off. On Mars, the Vraxil were about to learn another important lesson about humanity. When you threaten their families, humans do not surrender. They fight back with everything they have. And mining equipment makes excellent weapons when you are angry enough to use it. Part 5. The message to the galaxy 6 months had changed everything. The captured Vraxil ships had been studied, their technology reverse-engineered by Earth's best scientists. The faster-than-light drives that had seemed like magic were now understood, improved and installed in humanity's own vessels. Earth Defense Coalition had become something more, the Free Stars Alliance. Captain Tae-yang stood on the bridge of the Liberator, humanity's first purpose-built FTL warship. Around him, his crew prepared for their first jump beyond the solar system. Behind them, 23 more ships formed up in formation, a mix of retrofitted Vraxil vessels and new human designs. This was not a fleet built for conquest. It was built for one purpose: to free slaves. "All ships report ready for jump," his navigation officer announced. "Arya, calculate the route to the Vraxil staging base," Tae-yang ordered. The AI's voice came through the speakers, warm and confident. "Route calculated. Jump in 30 seconds. And Captain, try not to get my hull damaged. I just got this paint job." Tae-yang smiled. Arya had been given a mobile platform, transferred from Earth's defense grid to this ship so she could continue protecting humans even in deep space. She had objected at first, claiming she needed to stay and guard Earth. Then, Hyunwoo had pointed out that the best defense was removing the threats before they reached Earth. She had agreed immediately. The jump drive activated and space twisted around them. For 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. The Liberator existed in a dimension that human eyes were not meant to see. Then reality snapped back, and they were somewhere else, light years from home. The Vraxil staging base hung in space ahead of them, a massive station orbiting a dead moon. It was 5 times larger than Jupiter Station, bristling with docking ports where hunting ships would gather before taking their captives deeper into Vraxil territory. Hundreds of those ships were there now, and the station's sensors had just detected the human fleet. "They're powering weapons," the tactical officer reported. "Arya, open a channel," Tae-yang ordered. "Let's give them a chance to do this the easy way. Channel open, they're listening." "Vraxil Station, this is Captain Tae-yang of the Free Stars Alliance. You are harboring slaves taken from multiple species. Release them immediately and surrender your station. This is your only warning." The response came quickly, full of arrogance and anger. "You dare threaten us in our own territory? We are Vraxil. We have ruled this region for 500 years. Leave now or be destroyed." Tae-yang sighed. "I tried. Arya, show them what happens when you threaten innocent people." "With pleasure," Arya replied. The battle was not even close to fair. The Vraxil had numbers, but humanity had learned from their previous encounter. Every weakness Dr. Minji had identified was exploited. Every tactical doctrine they had developed was put into practice, and Arya coordinated the entire fleet with an efficiency that no biological commander could match. Kinetic weapons tore through Vraxil shields. EMP missiles disabled their targeting systems. The rail drones that Lieutenant Dae-hyun had pioneered now came in their hundreds, swarming enemy ships like angry hornets. The Vraxil fought hard, but they were fighting the descendants of persistence hunters, a species that had spent thousands of years learning to work together and never give up. Within 2 hours, the battle was over. The station was secured, its weapons disabled, its crew surrendering. And when the human Marines breached the holding areas, they found what they had come for. Thousands of prisoners from dozens of different species, all taken as slaves. Jiwan led her team through the prison blocks, breaking open cells and cutting chains. The prisoners stared at their rescuers in confusion and fear at first. Most had never seen humans before. They did not understand why these strange aliens were setting them free. "My name is Jiwan," she told them through a translation device Arya provided. "We are humans from Earth. We came because the Vraxil attacked our world 6 months ago. They wanted to take our people as slaves. We stopped them. And now we're stopping them from taking anyone else." A tall, thin alien with purple skin and 4 arms stepped forward. "Why? Why risk yourselves for us? You do not know our species. You owe us nothing." "Because slavery is wrong," Jiwan said simply. "No one should be taken from their home and forced to serve others. No one should have their freedom stolen. We're not going to let it happen anymore." The alien's eyes filled with tears. "Our people have been hunted by the Vraxil for 3 generations. We thought we were alone. We thought no one would help." "You're not alone anymore," Jiwan said, "and we're going to make sure the Vraxil never hunt your people again." Word spread quickly through the freed prisoners. The humans were liberators, not conquerors. They wanted nothing except to stop the slavers. Within hours, representatives from 17 different species were asking to join the Free Stars Alliance, offering ships, soldiers, and information about other Vraxil operations. Admiral Kyung-soo received their requests back on Earth and approved them all. The alliance was not going to be humans alone. It would be everyone who valued freedom over profit, cooperation over domination. Dr. Minji worked with the freed aliens to gather intelligence. She learned about the Vraxil Empire's structure, about their supply lines and communication networks, about the other species that engaged in similar practices. And she learned about the Galactic Council, a loose organization of civilizations that officially condemned slavery but did nothing to stop it. "They are afraid," a freed alien scientist explained. "The Vraxil are powerful. The Council species have decided it is easier to look away than to fight. Then we'll show them they don't have to be afraid," Minji said. The human fleet struck 3 more Vraxil facilities over the next month. Each time, they freed prisoners and captured ships. Each time, they broadcast their actions across the galactic communication networks. The message was always the same. Slavery would not be tolerated, slavers would not be safe, and humanity would hunt them to the end of the galaxy if necessary. The Vraxil High Council finally took notice. They sent a fleet 3 times larger than their first hunting expedition, determined to crush these upstart humans and teach the galaxy what happened to those who defied Vraxil power. That fleet arrived at Earth to find it surrounded by defense platforms, orbital weapons, and ships from a dozen different species. The Free Stars Alliance had grown. What had started as one world refusing to be victims had become a coalition of the oppressed, all united by the simple idea that freedom was worth fighting for. Ambassador Yuna, humanity's first official diplomat, addressed the Vraxil fleet from Earth Defense Command. "You came to our world 6 months ago expecting easy prey. You left with your fleet destroyed and your war master in chains. You should have learned your lesson then. But if you need it taught again, we are ready. Look around you. Look at all the species standing with us. Every one of them has been hunted by your empire. Every one of them wants justice. Attack us, and you won't just be fighting humans. You'll be fighting everyone you ever wronged." The Vraxil fleet commander looked at his tactical displays and saw the truth. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded by enemies who had every reason to hate his species. This was not a battle he could win. "We withdraw," he transmitted. "But this is not over. The Empire will not forget this insult." "We're counting on it," Yuna replied, "because we're not done with your empire yet. Every slave you hold, we will free. Every hunting fleet you send, we will destroy. You have 2 choices. End slavery voluntarily, or we will end it for you. The galaxy is watching, and they've seen what happens when you face united opposition. Make your choice." The Vraxil fleet jumped away without firing a shot. It was the first time in 500 years that a Vraxil expedition had retreated without taking a single slave. 3 months later, the Vraxil Empire collapsed into civil war. Some wanted to fight humanity to the bitter end. Others wanted to reform, to find new ways to sustain their civilization without slavery. The High Council split, and the Empire fractured. But humanity did not stop. With the Free Stars Alliance growing every day, they hunted down slavers of every species. They found prison stations hidden in asteroid fields. They liberated work camps on harsh worlds. They freed people who had been slaves their entire lives and had forgotten what freedom felt like. And the galaxy watched. Ambassador Una stood before the Galactic Council 1 year after the Vraxil first attacked Earth. Around her, representatives from hundreds of species watched with mixed emotions. Some were grateful for humanity's actions. Others were nervous about this aggressive new species. All were respectful, even fearful. "We came from a world where terrible things happened," Una said. "Where people were enslaved, where atrocities were committed, where the strong preyed on the weak. We learned from those mistakes. We learned to say never again, and we meant it, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. You have watched us for the past year. You have seen us fight. Some of you think we are dangerous, and you are right. We are very dangerous to anyone who profits from suffering. But we are also your allies if you value freedom. If you believe all thinking beings deserve dignity and choice. The Free Stars Alliance is not just humans. It is everyone who refuses to look away from injustice." Part 4. The wrath of Earth Admiral Kyung-soo stood in the command center buried deep beneath Earth's surface. Around him, hundreds of officers monitored screens showing the battle at Mars and the Vraxil fleet preparing to fire on the colony. He had given the order he hoped he would never have to give, and now there was no taking it back. "Prometheus is active," an officer reported. "All lunar platforms firing. On the moon's surface, hidden beneath layers of regolith and rock, 64 mass driver cannons had been built over the past 30 years. Each one was 5 kilometers long, using electromagnetic rails to accelerate tungsten rods to speeds that approached a significant fraction of light speed. At those velocities, the rods carried more kinetic energy than nuclear weapons, and they were completely silent until impact. The Vraxil never saw them coming. The first rod struck War Master Kreth's flagship in the engineering section. The ship's shields, still recovering from the EMP attack, managed to deflect some of the energy. Not enough. The rod punched through the hull like it was made of tissue paper, traveling through 17 decks before exiting the other side. The damage should have been catastrophic but localized. Then physics caught up with the impact. The kinetic energy transfer was so massive that metal turned to plasma. The engineering section simply ceased to exist, replaced by an expanding ball of superheated gas. Secondary explosions ripped through adjacent compartments. The flagship broke in half, both pieces tumbling through space, trailing debris and bodies. Kreth survived the initial impact by sheer luck. His command bridge was in the forward section, which remained mostly intact. But his ship was dead, power failing, life support running on emergency batteries. Through the viewports, he watched more rods strike his fleet like the fists of an angry god. 3 more heavy cruisers died in the first volley. The rods struck with such force that entire ships crumpled or broke apart. There was no defense against them, no way to dodge something moving that fast, no shield strong enough to stop that much kinetic energy. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Kreth screamed into his communication system, but half his fleet could no longer hear him. Their communication arrays had been destroyed. The lunar platforms fired again, and again. The rods came in waves, each one precisely targeted by artificial intelligence that calculated trajectories faster than any living mind could follow. That AI was called Aria, and she had been managing Earth's defense grid for 8 years. She was not supposed to have emotions, but the programmers had made her too smart, too adaptable. Over the years, she had developed something that looked very much like protectiveness toward the humans she was designed to defend. "Target priority updated," Aria announced in her calm, synthetic voice. "Vraxil vessels attempting to fire on Mars colony will be eliminated first." 2 Vraxil destroyers had their bombardment cannons aimed at the colony. Aria calculated their firing solutions, predicted their positions 3 seconds into the future, and launched rods to meet them at that exact point in space. Both ships exploded before they could fire a single shot. Threat to civilian population neutralized, Area reported. Then she added, in a tone that somehow conveyed satisfaction, "Don't threaten my humans." Captain Tae Yang brought the Silent Arrow around for another attack run, his crew working in perfect coordination. The Vraxil fleet was in complete chaos now. Some ships trying to retreat, others trying to fight back, none of them succeeding at either. His tactical officer called out targets and his gunners took them down one after another. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from one of the Vraxil ships," his communications officer reported. They're trying to surrender." Tae Yang felt a moment of satisfaction. "Tell them to power down their weapons and engines. Any ship that complies will be spared. Any ship that doesn't will be destroyed." 5 Vraxil vessels immediately went dark, drifting powerless in the void. The others kept fighting or trying to flee. Arya and the human fleet gave them no mercy. This was not just a battle anymore. It was a statement. On Mars, Jiwan stood among the exhausted colonists and Marines, all of them watching through the dome as the space battle unfolded above them. The Vraxil soldiers who had invaded the colony had either been killed or had surrendered after their command ship was destroyed. The colonists had won their ground war, and now they were watching humanity win in space. Suho held his children tight, tears running down his face. They had survived. All of them had survived. And the aliens who had threatened to take them as slaves were dying in fire and violence above their heads. "Is it over, Dad?" his daughter asked. "Almost, baby. Almost." Dr. Minji was interrogating a captured Vraxil officer in a holding cell on Jupiter Station. The alien was injured, defeated, and terrified. It had never occurred to him that he might be the one captured, the one imprisoned, the one at the mercy of another species. "Why did you come to Earth?" Minji asked. "You were supposed to be easy," the Vraxil said in broken English. "Primitive, divided, weak. We're not weak. We're just patient. We've been watching your people for 40 years. Every ship that passed through our detection range we studied. Every communication we intercepted we analyzed. We knew someone would come eventually. We prepared." The Vraxil looked at her with what might have been respect. "You are not like the others. The other species we have taken. They fought, but they did not plan. They resisted, but they did not trap us. You are something new. Where is your main base?" Minji asked. "Where do you take the slaves you capture?" The officer hesitated, then seemed to realize he had nothing left to lose. 3 systems from here. The staging world. That is where the harvest ships gather before taking the captured to the Empire's core worlds." Minji smiled coldly. "Thank you. That's very helpful." "Why?" the Vraxil asked. "What will you do?" "We're going to find every slave you've ever taken, and we're going to free them all." The Vraxil's eyes widened in shock. "That is impossible. The Empire is vast. You are just one small world. One small world that just destroyed your hunting fleet," Minji replied. "Watch what we do next." The battle ended 2 hours after it began. Of the 12 Vraxil ships that had entered the solar system, 5 had surrendered. 3 had been captured, disabled but intact, and 4 had been completely destroyed. War Master Kreth's flagship was boarded by human Marines, and Kreth himself was taken prisoner. Admiral Kyungsu addressed the fleet and all of humanity in a transmission that would be remembered for generations. Today, humanity faced its greatest test. An alien force came to our system expecting to find victims. Instead, they found warriors. They came to take our people as slaves. Instead, they became prisoners. They thought we were primitive and helpless. Instead, they learned we are prepared and strong. But this is not over. We now know the galaxy is full of predators, and Earth is no longer hidden. So we will not wait to be attacked again. We will take the fight to them. We will find every slaver, every hunter, every empire built on suffering, and we will tear them down. We are not conquerors. We are not seeking territory or glory. But we will not tolerate slavery. Not of humans, not of any species. The Vraxil came here to hunt. Now they will learn what it means to be hunted by Earth. Let the word spread across the stars. Humanity is no longer prey. We are the hunters now. And we are coming for anyone who profits from suffering. In his cell, War Master Kreth listened to those words and understood that he had made the worst mistake of his long life. He had not just attacked another species. He had awakened something that the galaxy was not prepared for. He had awakened humanity's righteous anger, and there was no force in the universe more dangerous than that. Part 3. The price of freedom. Suho stood in the main plaza of Mars Colony, surrounded by 300 terrified civilians. Above them, through the transparent dome that covered the habitat, they could see Vraxil landing craft descending like metal locusts. His children were in the emergency shelter with the other kids, and he planned to keep them safe no matter what it cost. "Listen to me," he said, his voice carrying across the crowd. "We all heard what those aliens said. They think we're helpless. They think we'll just line up and let them take us." "Are they right?" "No," someone shouted from the back. Others joined in, anger replacing fear. "That's right. We're not helpless. We're miners, engineers, and farmers. We built this colony with our own hands on a dead planet. We have tools. We have equipment. We have each other. And we're not going to be slaves." He pulled up a holographic map of the colony. "The Vraxil will land at the main airlock. We collapse Tunnel 7 and force them to come through the mining sector. There we hit them with everything we have. Industrial lasers, drilling equipment, explosive charges meant for excavation. We turn our own colony into a trap." A woman named Heian, one of the chief engineers, stepped forward. "The mining mechs can be weaponized. They're designed to break rock. They'll break alien armor just fine." "Do it," Suho said. "Everyone who can fight, grab whatever you can use as a weapon. Everyone else, get to the shelters and seal them. Make the Vraxil work for every meter they take." While Mars Colony prepared to resist, 2,000 kilometers above them, Specialist Jiwan was preparing to disobey direct orders. She stood in the cargo bay of a civilian transport ship with 11 other Marines, all volunteers, all fully aware they might not survive the next few hours. "Command says we're not authorized for a rescue mission," she told her team. "They say it's too risky, that we'd be throwing away lives for nothing. But I've got family down there. Some of you do too. And even if we didn't, those are our people. I'm going down. Anyone who wants to stay behind, no judgment." Nobody moved toward the exit. They had all made their choice before boarding the ship. "Then let's go save some lives," Jiwan said. The transport ship was designed to look like a cargo vessel fleeing the battle. The Vraxil ignored it as it descended toward Mars, more focused on securing the colony. By the time they realized their mistake, Jiwan and her team were already inside the colony's secondary airlock. The first Vraxil soldiers entered Mars Colony through the main access tunnel. They were massive creatures, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in segmented armor that made them look like walking tanks. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never lost a hunt. That confidence lasted exactly 40 seconds. The tunnel collapsed behind them, sealed by explosive charges that Heian had placed in the support columns. At the same moment, the lights went out, replaced by emergency red illumination that turned everything into a nightmare landscape of shadows and confusion. Then the mining mechs activated. These were huge industrial machines designed to drill through solid rock. Now they came at the Vraxil from side passages, their arms ending not in human hands but in rotating blades and crushing claws. The lead Vraxil soldier had just enough time to raise his weapon before a mech grabbed him with a claw designed to lift 20 tons of ore and squeezed. The armor crumpled. The soldier screamed. And the humans of Mars Colony learned that they could make aliens bleed. Suho coordinated the defense from a control room, watching security cameras as the battle spread through the colony. It was brutal and desperate. The Vraxil were better armed and better trained, but the humans knew every tunnel, every hiding spot, every vulnerable point in their own home. They used that knowledge like a weapon. Industrial lasers designed to cut metal sliced through alien armor. Explosive charges meant for excavation brought down tunnels on top of alien soldiers. Even simple tools became deadly in hands driven by desperation and rage. A farmer named Bong used a plasma cutter to take down a Vraxil warrior twice his size, then grabbed the alien's weapon and kept fighting. Jiwan's team arrived in the middle of the chaos, bringing real military weapons and training. They moved through the colony like shadows, hitting Vraxil soldiers from behind, providing covering fire for civilians, and teaching the colonists how to fight more effectively. "Aim for the joints in their armor," Jiwan shouted to a group of miners. "Their chest plates can take a hit, but the joints are vulnerable." The battle raged for 3 hours. Every meter of tunnel was contested. The Vraxil had expected to walk in and take prisoners. Instead, they found themselves fighting for their lives in tight spaces against enemies who would rather die than surrender. On the Vraxil command ship in orbit, Subcommander Velrax watched the tactical displays with growing concern. His ground forces were supposed to secure the colony in 30 minutes. Instead, they were taking heavy casualties and making almost no progress. The humans were fighting like cornered animals, and it was working. War Master, Velrax said carefully, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. These primitives are more dangerous than our intelligence suggested. Kreth turned on him with fury in his eyes. Are you questioning my orders? We are the Vraxil! We have conquered 50 worlds. We do not retreat from primitives. With respect, these primitives have destroyed a quarter of our fleet and are currently killing our soldiers in their own colony. Perhaps they are not as primitive as we thought. Kreth struck Velrax across the face with one massive hand. Failure is unacceptable. If the ground forces cannot take the colony, then we will destroy it from orbit. Prepare the bombardment cannons. Velrax felt cold fear settle in his chest. Destroying the colony would kill the hostages they had threatened to take. It would prove they had no leverage, no control, but more than that, it would prove they were afraid. And Velrax was beginning to realize that fear might be the appropriate response. In the colony, Suho received the warning from Jupiter Station. The Vraxil were preparing to fire on them from orbit. They had minutes, maybe less. He opened a channel to everyone in the colony. This is it, he said quietly. They're going to shoot us from space. But we've already won. We showed them we're not prey. We proved humans don't surrender. Tell your families you love them. Die knowing you fought for something that mattered. His daughter's voice came over his personal channel. Daddy, are we going to die? Suho felt tears on his face. I don't know, baby. But if we do, know that your dad fought to protect you. That everyone here fought for each other. That's what humans do. He waited for the end, looking at the monitors showing colonists and Marines fighting side by side, showing Vraxil soldiers retreating through tunnels filled with smoke and blood, showing a colony that had refused to become a prison. Then Admiral Kyung-Soo's voice boomed across every speaker in Mars Colony. Mars Colony. This is Earth Defense Coalition Command. Hold your position. Help is already there. The Vraxil are about to learn what happens when you threaten human lives. Suho looked up at the dome, at the stars beyond, and saw something beautiful and terrible. Streaks of light were falling from Luna's surface, moving faster than anything he had ever seen. They looked like shooting stars, dozens of them, all heading directly for the Vraxil fleet. Project Prometheus had been activated, and the Vraxil were about to experience the full wrath of humanity's hidden strength.